Welcome back guys, Ben here, and today we're checking out new games coming out in July 26. July is looking surprisingly strong this year. We've got a good mix of major franchise releases, long-awaited remakes, ambitious indie projects, survival games, RPGs, and some extraction shooters and a couple of DLC expansions worth keeping an eye on as well. Like last month, we're keeping things simple and running through everything in release date order. I think it makes these videos a lot easier to follow, so yeah, let me know how you find that. And it also means some of the smaller indie games get just as much opportunity to shine as the big blockbuster releases. As always, all the games featured are PC titles coming to Steam, as we are predominantly a PC channel, with prices included where known at the time of recording. Prices will be in £sterling unless otherwise stated. If you enjoy discovering weird, ambitious, and interesting new games, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But enough talking, let's jump straight into the games coming out in July 26. Assassin's Creed Black Flag is widely regarded as one of the best games Ubisoft has ever made, and now it's returning with Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced, a full remake built for modern hardware. Set during the golden age of piracy, you once again step into the boots of Edward Kenway, a pirate captain who finds himself caught between rival empires, infamous pirates, and the centuries-long conflict between the Assassins and Templars. If you've never played Black Flag before, it's often remembered as the Assassin's Creed game that perfectly blended the series' traditional stealth and parkour with open-world naval exploration and that pirate fantasy. The big selling point here is that it isn't simply a remaster. Ubisoft is describing it as a faithfully enhanced remake featuring a significantly upgraded visuals, gameplay improvements, and new content. The Caribbean has been rebuilt with modern technology, bringing new life to locations, naval battles, and some of the most iconic moments from the original game. Of course, one of the reasons people still talk about Black Flag over a decade later is the sailing itself, exploring islands, hunting treasure, upgrading your ship, taking on enemy vessels, and hearing your crew sing those sweet sea shanties while crossing the ocean remains one of the most memorable gameplay loops Ubisoft has ever created. For returning fans, this looks like the definitive version of one of the franchise's most beloved entries. For newcomers, it might be the perfect opportunity to see why so many people consider Black Flag the high point of Assassin's Creed's original era. Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced releases on the 9th of July. The standard edition is priced at $49.99, while the deluxe edition costs $59.99 and includes additional cosmetic content, both your character and your ship. Echoes of Aincrad is an action RPG inspired by the world of Sword Art Online, throwing players into a dangerous virtual world where survival depends entirely on your ability to master combat, gear progression, and teamwork. Set within Aincrad, players create their own character, begin climbing through the game's massive tower structure, battling increasingly dangerous enemies and bosses while becoming stronger with every flaw conquered. If you're familiar with the Sword Art Online universe, you already know the premise. If you die in the game, you die in real life, and the Echoes of Aincrad leads heavily into the high-stakes atmosphere. Combat appears to be one of the major focuses here. Rather than simply button-mashing your way through encounters, the game encourages players to build synergies with companions, experiment with equipment loadouts, and unlock powerful abilities as they progress. Character development looks fairly extensive as well, with plenty of opportunities to customize how your hero plays. The game is also launching with a substantial amount of content from day one, alongside future expansion plans already included in some of the premium editions. For fans of anime RPGs, online action RPGs, or the Sword Art Online franchise itself, this could end up being one of the bigger releases of the month for you. There's also currently a demo available, which is always welcome for a game of this scale, allowing players to test the combat and progression systems before deciding whether it's for them. Echoes of Aincrad releases on the 9th of July. The standard edition costs £54.99 and the deluxe edition is £74.99 and includes expansion content, a starter pack, and early access to the Death Game mode. The Ultimate Edition is priced at $94.99 and has additional cosmetics, digital soundtrack, and the art book. Palworld is finally leaving early access on the 10th of July, and honestly, this feels significant enough that it deserves to be treated like a brand new release. When Palworld first launched back in early 2024, it absolutely exploded. Millions of players jumped in almost overnight, making it one of the biggest Steam launches we've seen in recent years. A combination of creature collecting, survival crafting, base building, and automation clearly resonated with players, and despite all the controversy and comparisons at launch, the Pokemon with guns, the game managed to build a massive community around itself. If you've somehow missed it, Palworld drops you into an open world filled with creatures known as pals. You can catch them, breed them, fight alongside them, put them to work gathering resources, running factories, managing farms, and helping automate huge portions of your base. It's one of those games where you can spend an hour exploring the world and somehow end up 10 hours later redesigning an entire production line. What makes the 1.0 launch particularly interesting is that the game has already evolved significantly since the initial release. New regions, additional pals, expanded progression systems, more bosses, more endgame content, and a huge number of quality of life improvements have been added throughout early access, making the game feel substantially larger than it did at launch. While the developers haven't fully detailed everything arriving with version 1.0 yet, the reveal trailer strongly suggests that there is more than just a simple version number change, new content, new challenges, new pals, and what appears to be a next major step in Palworld's ongoing development are all being teased as part of the update. This is also one I'm personally looking forward to revisiting. Spent quite a bit of time with Palworld when it first launched and had a great time with it, so I'm curious to see just how much has changed and whether the full release can recapture some of that magic that made it such a phenomenon in the first place. If you've been waiting for the game to leave early access before jumping in, or if you're someone someone who played hundreds of hours at launch and then moved on, July might be the perfect time to jump back in. Palworld version 1.0 launches on the 10th of July. The game is currently priced at $24.99, and although that price could potentially increase with the full release, that isn't uncommon when early access games go into 1.0, so do bear that in mind. No changes have been officially confirmed at the time of recording though for the price. Ascent to Zero is one of the more interesting indie games releasing this month because it takes a concept that instantly grabs your attention and builds an entire game around it. The premise is simple: what if you could stop time? This action roguelike gives players the ability to freeze time at will, transforming every encounter into a puzzle of positioning, planning, and execution. Rather than relying purely on quick reflexes, you're constantly deciding when to pause the action, reposition yourself, avoid incoming attacks, and line up devastating counterattacks while time starts moving again. That mechanic immediately sets it apart from a lot of other roguelikes. While many games in the genre focus on overwhelming chaos and fast reactions, Ascent to Zero appears to reward strategy just as much as mechanical skill. The ability to manipulate time opens up all sorts of possibilities for combat, movement, and survival. Visually, it also has a strong style of its own, combining colorful effects, fast-paced action, and screen-filling battles that become increasingly intense as you progress. Like most roguelikes, replayability appears to be a major focus, with upgrades, unlocks, and different builds, encouraging multiple runs as you gradually become more and more powerful. Time manipulation mechanic alone is enough to make this one worth paying attention to, and if the progression systems land well, it could easily become one of those indie games people keep recommending throughout the rest of the year. Tried the demo of this a while back, like the playtest, and really enjoyed it. I think it's got a ton of potential with this one. Ascent to Zero releases on the 13th of July. A demo is available now and on Steam, although pricing has not yet been announced. The Mound, Omen of Cthulhu is a 4-player co-op horror adventure inspired by the works of H.P. Lovecraft, and after playing the recent beta myself, it's definitely one of the more unique multiplayer games releasing this month. At first glance, it might look like another extraction-style co-op experience where you and your friends venture into dangerous environments search for treasure, but the real hook here is the way the jungle itself actively messes with your perception of reality. As you explore deeper into the cursed wilderness, strange events begin to unfold. Hallucinations, paranoia, and supernatural influences start distorting what you see and hear, making it increasingly difficult to tell what's real and what's a trick of the jungle. The longer you stay out there chasing greater rewards, the harder it becomes to trust your surroundings or even your teammates. It's one moment in the playtest, I was walking forward, saw what I thought was some treasure, and actually when I got there, I fell into a pit of spikes, and you just cannot trust your eyes with this one. A psychological horror angle helps separate it from a lot of other co-op games on the market right now. Success isn't just about shooting monsters and collecting loot, it's also about managing your sanity and making smart decisions when the environment itself is actively working against you. From my own time in the beta, the atmosphere was easily the standout element. There were moments where the game genuinely created uncertainty and tension, which is exactly what you'd want from something drawing inspiration from Lovecraftian horror. If you're a fan of cooperative horror games and want something a little different from the usual zombie shooters and survival experiences, this could be worth keeping on your radar. For me personally, I felt like this was the perfect mix of Deep Rock Galactic with Hunt Showdown, but mixing the two together, there is no PvP in this. This is a PvE only game. The Mound, Omen of Cthulhu releases on the 15th of July. Current PlayStation pricing suggests $24.99 for the standard edition and $34.99 for the deluxe edition. Both editions will receive a 10% launch discount as well. Nothing on Steam about that yet, but like I said, that pricing was on the PlayStation Store. I'd expect to be the same over on Steam. The deluxe edition itself includes an additional mission and some cosmetic content. Frozen Ship is one of the games I'm personally most interested in this month, and it also is the one that has changed dramatically since I first played it. Set in a frozen post-apocalyptic world, you're tasked with managing what is essentially a mobile city built around a giant ice-breaking ship. As humanity struggles to survive in an endless frozen wasteland, your ship becomes both your home and your lifeline, carrying your people across the icy landscape in search of resources, answers, and survival. What makes this particularly interesting is how much the game has evolved during development. When I first tried it last year, most interactions were handled through 2D interfaces and menus within the ship itself. Since then, the developers have completely overhauled the experience, transforming it into a fully realized 3D environment where you can physically walk around the ship's bridge and interact with the systems directly. You then step outside of that ship, and this is where the game then combines survival mechanics, resource management, and narrative storytelling. But it's the concept of managing an entire moving city that really stands out. Every decision impacts not only your own survival, but also the people depending on you as you navigate increasingly dangerous conditions. Visually, the new direction looks far more immersive than the original version I played, and the additional freedom to move around the ship helps sell the fantasy of actually being its captain rather than simply managing the menus. For fans of Frostpunk and maybe a little bit of the long dark survival management games and post-apocalyptic storytelling, this feels like one of the more promising indie releases of the month. Frozen Ship releases on the 17th of July. A demo is currently available on Steam, although pricing has not yet been announced. Dive or Die: Children of Rain is one of the darkest and most intriguing indie games releasing this month, combining survival management, exploration, and Lovecraftian horror into a bleak fight against extinction. The world is being consumed by a mysterious phenomenon known as the Black Rain, and your only hope of survival lies beneath the surface. To keep your camp alive, you'll repeatedly descend into a cursed abyss filled with resources, secrets, and increasingly terrifying eldritch eldritch horrors. Every expedition becomes a calculated risk. The deeper you venture, the greater the rewards, but also the greater the danger. Resources are desperately needed to improve your camp, upgrade your equipment, and keep your survivors alive, but not everyone is guaranteed to return. One of the more interesting aspects of the game is how it ties survival and sacrifice together. You're not simply collecting resources for yourself, you're managing an entire group of survivors and making difficult decisions about who gets sent into danger and what risks are worth taking in order to secure humanity's future. The atmosphere also looks fantastic, between the oppressive environments, mysterious creatures, and constant threat hanging over every expedition. Feels like the developers are aiming for a very strong sense of dread and tension throughout the experience. If you're a fan of dark survival games, eldritch horror, and the management-focused experiences where every decision matters, Dive or Die Children of Rain could be one of the hidden gems of July. Dive or Die Children of Rain releases on the 21st of July. A demo is available now on Steam, although pricing has not yet been announced. Lost in Tandem is a charming release this month, aiming for heart as much as its puzzles. Set in a post-apocalyptic world, the story follows a young girl and a defective robot named Mechute, who form an unlikely partnership as they journey together to complete a mission that could change both of their futures. While plenty of games use companionship as a theme, Lost in Tandem appears to build the entire experience around the relationship between its two protagonists. Gameplay focuses on puzzle solving, exploration, and cooperation. The game can be played solo or with a friend through local couch co-op, making it a nice option for players looking for something a little more relaxed compared to the action-heavy releases that we're seeing so far this month. Visually, it has a colorful and inviting art style that contrasts nicely with its post-apocalyptic setting. Rather than focusing on bleak survival, the game seems much more interested in themes of friendship, teamwork, and discovery. Puzzles themselves appear to be built around the unique abilities of both characters, requiring players to work together to overcome obstacles and progress through the world. Those kind of cooperative mechanics often lead to some of the most memorable puzzle-solving moments, particularly when playing with a friend or family member. If you're a fan of games like It Takes Two, Unravel 2, or other cooperative adventures that mix storytelling with clever puzzle design, Lost in Tandem could end up being one of the more overlooked gems of July. Lost in Tandem releases on the 22nd of July. A demo is currently available on Steam. DragonSword Awakening certainly looks ambitious, blending anime-inspired visuals, open-world exploration, and action RPG combat into a package that immediately draws comparisons to games like Genshin Impact and Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. Set across the continent of Orbis, players are tasked with exploring a vast fantasy world brought to life using Unreal Engine 5. From the footage shown so far, the world itself looks very impressive, featuring large environments, varied landscapes, and plenty of opportunities for exploration. Combat appears to be a major focus here. Rather than controlling a single character, you'll recruit companions throughout your journey and build a team capable of unleashing powerful tag team attacks and elemental combinations. The game places a strong emphasis on status effects and synergy between party members, encouraging players to experiment with different character combinations to maximize their effectiveness in battle. The story centers around the return of a dragon that has remained dormant for 60 years, setting the stage for a large-scale fantasy adventure filled with dangerous enemies, powerful allies, and world-threatening stakes. One thing that stands out immediately is the production quality. The visuals, combat animations, and scale of the world suggest the developers are aiming for something much bigger than your typical indie RPG release. Whether the final game can fully deliver on the ambition remains to be seen, but it certainly has the potential to attract a lot of attention. For fans of anime action RPGs, open-world exploration, and party-based combat systems, DragonSword Awakening is definitely one worth keeping your eye on. DragonSword Awakening releases on the 22nd of July. A demo is available now on Steam. Palworld is giving off some serious Jurassic Park energy, and honestly, that's probably all some people need to hear. Set within the dinosaur theme park Prehistoria, players are sent on a covert mission that quickly turns into a fight for survival. What begins as an exploration and scavenging operation soon becomes something much more dangerous as you discover that you're far from the top of the food chain. The game combines exploration, puzzle solving, resource gathering, and combat as you venture through different areas of the park, from lush outdoor environments to underground tunnels and heavily fortified containment facilities. Each location presents new dangers and opportunities to uncover what happened here. Of course, the real stars of the show are the dinosaurs. Unlike many survival games where enemies simply act as obstacles, the dinosaurs here appear to be a constant threat that can dramatically alter how you approach exploration. Every decision becomes riskier when there's always the possibility of becoming lunch for something significantly larger than you. What immediately caught my attention is the atmosphere. The abandoned theme park setting feels like a fantastic backdrop for a survival game, combining mystery, tension, and plenty of opportunities for environmental storytelling. Difficult not to think of Jurassic Park while watching the trailers, and that's certainly not a bad thing. The game also appears to strike a nice balance between action and survival. You'll need to manage resources, solve environmental puzzles, and carefully navigate dangerous areas rather than simply shooting your way through every encounter. If you're a fan of dinosaurs, survival adventures, and games that make you feel like you're constantly being hunted, Palworld looks like it could be one of the more interesting indie releases of the month. Palworld releases on 23rd of July. A demo is currently available on Steam. Forsaken Realms: Vahrin's Call is one of the more traditional fantasy RPGs releasing this month, but sometimes that's exactly what people are looking for. Set in the war-torn city of Vahrin, players take on the role of a mercenary arriving at a settlement that's on the verge of collapse. With factions struggling for control, resources running thin, and danger lurking beyond the city walls, Vahrin desperately needs help. The question is whether you're answering the call out of heroism, greed, or simply because there's coin to be made. Gameplay plays a strong emphasis on narrative and player choice, blending action RPG combat with a story-driven adventure. From what's been shown so far, exploration, quests, and character interactions all appear to play a significant role in shaping your journey through the world. Combat looks to strike a balance between accessibility and depth, with players developing their character through equipment upgrades, abilities, and progression systems, while taking on increasingly dangerous threats throughout the region. One thing that immediately appeals to me is the focus on a grounded fantasy setting. Rather than trying to save the entire universe from day one, the story seems much more focused on a single city and the people struggling to survive within it. Those smaller scale stories often end up being some of the most memorable. For RPG fans looking for a classic fantasy adventure with a strong narrative focus, Forsaken Realms Vahrin's Call feels like one worth keeping an eye on. Forsaken Realms Vahrin's Call releases on the 27th of July. Pricing has not yet been announced at the time of recording. Halo Campaign Evolved is easily one of the biggest releases of the month and brings one of gaming's most iconic campaigns back for a new generation. This is a faithful but modernized remake of Halo Combat Evolved, rebuilding the original adventure with high-definition visuals, updated cinematics, refined controls, and a range of gameplay improvements designed to make the experience feel modern while preserving what made the original so special. For anyone unfamiliar with the original, Halo Combat Evolved helped define the console shooter genre and introduce players to Master Chief, Cortana, and a legendary Halo ring itself. Even 25 years later, many still consider it one of the greatest FPS campaigns ever created. What's particularly exciting here is that this isn't simply a visual upgrade. We've already had that with the Master Chief collection. Alongside the original story, the remake also includes an entirely new free mission campaign featuring both Master Chief and Sergeant Johnson, giving long-time fans brand new content to experience for the very first time. Gameplay has also been expanded with additional weapons, vehicles, enemy variants, and new skulls. For those unfamiliar, skulls are optional gameplay modifiers that can dramatically change how the campaign plays, adding extra challenge, chaos, or entirely new ways to experience familiar encounters. And on that note, they've added a skull that lets you play the entire game in the third-person mode instead of first-person mode. The remake also supports solo play as well as up to 4-player online co-op with full cross-play and cross-progression support, making it easier than ever to jump into the campaign with friends regardless of platform. Whether you're revisiting Halo after decades away or experiencing it for the very first time, Halo Campaign Evolved looks like it could be the definitive version of one of gaming's most important shooters. Halo Campaign Evolved releases on 28th of July. The standard edition is priced at $49.99, while the premium edition costs $69.99 and includes 5 days of early access starting on the 23rd of July, along with cosmetic items, a digital art book, short story collection, and a digital game manual. Worth mentioning that, of course, as a first-party title, this will be coming to Game Pass on Xbox and PC. It'll also be available on Steam, of course, and for the first time ever, it'll also be on the PS5. Mistfall Hunter is looking to combine two of the biggest trends in gaming right now: extraction gameplay and action RPG combat. Set within a dark fantasy world, players take on the role of guild hunters, warriors venturing into dangerous regions in search of powerful loot, rare equipment, and valuable resources. The catch, of course, is that getting the loot is only half the battle. You still need to survive long enough to extract with it. Unlike many extraction games that focus heavily on firearms and realism, Mistfall Hunter leans fully into fantasy combat. Players can choose different classes, experiment with talents, abilities, and equipment builds, and create powerful combinations that suit their preferred playstyle. Combat appears much more action-orientated than traditional RPGs, with dodging, positioning, and timing all playing important roles in success. Whether you prefer to charge into battle with a group of allies or attempt to survive the dangers alone, the risk versus reward system remains at the heart of the experience. One thing that stands out immediately is the atmosphere. The world looks dark, hostile, dangerous, filled with monsters, rival players, and valuable treasures that constantly tempt you into taking just one more risk. Extraction games live and die by their progression systems and the tension they create, but if Mistfall Hunter can successfully blend those elements with satisfying fantasy combat, it could carve out a very interesting niche for itself. From the playtest and the demo I've tried of this, it feels like a combination of Dark and Darker mixed with a little bit of God of War and then mixed with Elden Ring all together. There's a lot of strong Norse mythology or at least influences within this game, so that's where the God of War element's coming from. Combat feels like an Elden Ring light, and then you've got that Dark and Darker kind of going into the maps, and other players are going to be there. Worth noting on that point, this is a PvEVP title only. There is no PvE mode. You can play solo or matchmake into trios, or you can go in as a group of 3 yourself, but there is no solo or PvE only option. But if you're someone who has a Game Pass subscription, this will be included on it and is one of the best ways to check this out. Luminary is one of those games that feels like it's trying to make the action RPG genre more approachable without sacrificing the sense of adventure that makes these games so appealing in the first place. Designed to be played either solo or cooperatively with friends, Luminary drops players into a handcrafted fantasy world where darkness has begun spreading across the land. Your goal is to explore, gather resources, liberate regions, strengthen your town, and gradually push back the corruption using the power of light. What immediately stands out is the philosophy behind the game. The developers describe it as an ARPG light, focusing on accessibility and flexibility rather than overwhelming players with complicated systems. Combat is designed to be forgiving, progression is straightforward, and friends can jump in and out of your world with minimal fuss. That's something I think a lot of players will appreciate, especially those who enjoy games with friends but don't necessarily want to commit hundreds of hours learning complex mechanics. Despite that accessibility, there's still plenty here for players to sink their teeth into. You'll create your own character, choose from multiple races, and customize your appearance before setting off to explore a large open zone world filled with hidden treasures, enemy camps, towers to liberate, powerful bosses to defeat. Combat also looks surprisingly varied. Players can swap between different weapon types on the fly, including swords and shields, bows, and magical gauntlets, allowing you to adapt to different situations and experiment with different playstyles. Perhaps the most impressive thing is that Luminary is being developed by just 2 people. The scale of what's already here is genuinely ambitious, and the developers have made it clear that additional content and world expansion are planned if early access proves successful. For fans of cooperative action RPGs, accessible fantasy adventures, and games that prioritize exploration over complexity, Luminary could end up being one of the hidden gems of the month, especially now that Outward 2 has been delayed to 2027. That leaves a very nice co-op fantasy ARPG hole that Luminary can maybe fill. Luminary releases on the 30th of July. A demo is available now on Steam, although pricing has not yet been announced. The Relic First Guardian is closing out the month with what looks like a much darker and more traditional action RPG experience. Set within the shattered world of Arsiltis, players enter a land that was once prosperous but has since fallen into ruin following the destruction of a powerful relic. What remains is a broken world haunted by the memories, emotions, and wishes of those who came before. These lingering fragments have become relics themselves, powerful remnants that now play a central role in both the story and gameplay. You take on the role of the First Guardian, one of the last remaining hopes for restoring balance to the world. Throughout your journey, you'll seek out these relics, uncover their histories, and harness their power in an effort to rebuild what has been lost. From everything shown so far, the game appears to lean heavily into action-oriented combat. Encounters look deliberate and methodical, with an emphasis on timing, positioning, and learning enemy attack patterns, rather than simply overwhelming opponents with numbers. It gives off strong Souls-like and action RPG influences, while still appearing to maintain its own identity through the relic system and world design. Visually, the game looks impressive as well. The ruined cities, desolate landscapes, and massive structures scattered throughout Arsiltis create a world that feels ancient, mysterious, and worth exploring. There's a strong sense that every location has a story behind it, which should appeal to players who enjoy environmental storytelling and lore-rich worlds. What interests me the most is the relic system itself. Rather than simply collecting better gear, it looks like these fragments of memory and emotion could have a much deeper connection to both character progression and the narrative, potentially giving players meaningful choices about how they develop their Guardian. For fans of darker fantasy worlds, challenging action RPG combat, and story-driven adventures, the Relic First Guardian releases on the 31st of July. Pricing has not yet been officially confirmed, although expectations currently place it somewhere around the £45 mark. Doom: The Dark Ages is the next DLC from ID Software, introducing a brand new campaign, enemies, and weapons to explore. This DLC picks up the Slayer wounded, betrayed, and trapped within a brutal purgatory. Rather than simply introducing a few extra missions, Revelations appears to be a full continuation of the story, exploring new aspects of the Slayer's journey while introducing fresh enemies, environments, and challenges along the way. One of the headline additions is the Chain Spear, a completely new weapon designed to add another layer of mobility and aggression to combat. From what we've seen so far, it allows players to close distances rapidly, reposition during fights, and create new opportunities to tear through demons in classic Doom fashion. The expansion also introduces entirely new levels, additional puzzles, fresh enemy types, and a powerful new godlike abomination that looks set to become one of the biggest boss encounters in the game. For people who enjoy pushing their skills even further, Revelations also includes the long-awaited Repertorium 3.0 update. This adds new maps, additional demon encounters, upgraded weapons, and significant expanded customization options, allowing players to build and save their own combat challenges and training scenarios. Given how well received The Dark Ages has been, this feels less like a small DLC pack and more like a substantial second chapter to the Slayer's latest adventure. Doom: The Dark Ages Revelations releases on the 7th of July. Pricing has not yet been announced at the time of recording. The Altars was one of the standout sci-fi releases of the year, and Last Variable looks set to significantly expand both its story and survival systems. Unlike many DLC expansions that simply add a few side missions or optional content, Last Variable continues one of the game's endings directly. Specifically, it follows the outcome where Yan Scientist remains on the planet and takes responsibility for leading a new team of specialists, opening the door to an entirely new chapter of the story. What's particularly impressive is the scale being discussed. The developers are estimating roughly 20 hours of additional gameplay, which puts this closer to a a traditional expansion than a typical DLC pack. Players will be venturing into previously unexplored regions of the planet, discovering new resources and continuing humanity's efforts to survive in an increasingly hostile environment. Terraforming also appears to play a much larger role this time around, giving players greater influence over how the world develops as the expansion progresses. Base management is being expanded as well. New underground facilities, additional field laboratories, and more advanced infrastructure systems should provide plenty of new challenges for players who enjoyed the balancing act of managing their crew and resources in the base game. What makes the altars so compelling is its focus on choices, identity, and survival, and it sounds like Last Variable is aiming to build upon all of those strengths rather than simply offering more of the same. For anyone who finished the altars and wanted to spend more time in its fascinating sci-fi universe, this looks like a substantial expansion that could easily feel like a sequel campaign in its own right. The altars Last Variable releases on the 13th of July. Pricing has not yet been announced. That's everything coming out in July 2026 that caught my eye. This month feels like a really nice balance between big established franchises and smaller games that could end up becoming surprise hits. You've got major releases like Halo Campaign Evolved and Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced, but also plenty of interesting indie projects that are trying something a little bit different. For me personally, the three I'm most excited about are Halo Campaign Evolved, Forsaken Realms Vahrin's Call, and Frozen Ship. Halo is one of the most influential shooters ever made, one of my favorites, and I'm really curious to see how they modernize it. Forsaken Realms looks like it could be fantastic fantasy RPG if it sticks to landing, and it feels like it's got a little bit of that Fable energy in there as well. And Frozen Ship has come such a long way since I first played it that I'm genuinely excited to see where it goes next. That said, there are plenty of other games here that could end up seeing the spotlight. Sometimes the games everyone is talking about aren't the ones that end up being remembered 6 months later. Let me know in the comments which games you're looking forward to the most, and if there's anything releasing in July that you think deserves a mention. And if you enjoy these monthly roundups, make sure you're subscribed because I do one of these every single month alongside demos, first impressions, early access coverage, and full playthroughs of some of the most interesting games releasing throughout the year. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and drop a comment below for the algorithm. It's much appreciated, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.